This is the Infinity Summit Group. Truth, passion, success.
Probably something more like this. So I think you always have to be open to growth, and I think that's another point of life is growth. And I hate when people aren't open to it. I think growth's important through life, through whether it's spiritual or whether it's monetary at work or whether it's friendship or relationships. I think you have to be open to growth.
So I'm hoping to expound on your points a little bit there. You said there's different levels of heaven. It's not just like you go in and dab up Jesus, you know, all that jazz. Where, in your opinion, where is the end goal of our spiritual progression? Like, what do you end up doing? What do you end up being? Because it's said, you know, where you are, I once was, and where I am, you too shall be, basically.
Yeah.
So if we'll say if we are each not gods in our own right, or we'll say gods in training, what's the end goal? What's the end game of all this learning?
Yeah. So maybe in that respect, again, it's something I don't know, and it's something I don't think anybody knows. It's something I think potentially, you could be your own God.
Right.
It's written about, and I think, again, maybe we are all gods in training. We're just down here. But then again, if you're your own God, right? Say the point of this, you're a God in training, and the point is to become your own God.
All right.
If you're your own God, why do you need training from another God? Because you're your own God at that point, right?
Who is God's God?
Exactly. And so, like, is it you're in training to be a God that you're like cookie cutter of this God on this earth? Or is it you're going through his training to be able to have the free agency to be a God of another place in whatever respect you want?
Yeah, so what has God done for this earth? He's created this earth. He's created us, right? I actually heard a very, very interesting tidbit from a guy who I know is extremely religious and has done a lot of this stuff. A lot of this, we'll say, creative thinking, learning. He said, what if we weren't created by God but found by God and given bodies? It was interesting, to say the least. But it's, in my perspective, the fact that we'll call it a fact, where you are, I once was, where I am, you will become, essentially. That means we at least have a sliver of that spirit of God, right? We all have a soul, we have a spirit, a consciousness. So, and we too create in our own lives. You'll notice, you've heard of the law of attraction and stuff. It's, whatever on that. But you do create in this life alongside, or we'll say in spite of, God's will. And so I find it very fascinating that we'll say a lot of people go throughout life just attributing every single thing in their life to God, which if he created us, then yes, right? Then obviously it's like, we're a creation, whatever. It's like a robot. But it's also, if we are given a sliver of that free choice, that Godhood, then we also create some things for ourselves. And throughout this eternal progression of spirituality, it would only make sense that maybe we are training to be a God like him, or a God in our own right, or we can create our own planet, whatever. Who knows? Who the fuck knows? It's just very, very fascinating to think about. I wouldn't say belittle yourself by saying everything I do is because of God. But it would almost be like you're also not acknowledging that you have that slice of him.
Right.
That you have that free choice, and you are partially a creator, right?
Yeah. And I know what you're saying there. I've had the same argument with my little brother. Which
do tell.
Which and maybe so you take my three brothers, me and my two brothers.
Yeah.
You get totally different side of religion on
yeah.
all three. Very different, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But maybe I am wrong in attributing everything to God. And when I say attributing everything to God, it's not that I know.
Not saying you're wrong, by the way.
Yeah, and I get where you're coming from, and this is the perspective me and my little brother talked about. It's not saying that I didn't choose that with my free agency. It's more so giving thanks that it was allowed to happen in a sense. So like I asked God to give me safe travel, and he transported me over a card.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. You know, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I didn't jump. God really helped me.
Right.
In the sense of anything in life, I pray for it, looking for guidance, and it just helps guide me through life, and I give thanks for it. I think if you're always asking, you're doing wrong. If you're only thinking, you're doing wrong. You know, it has to be a give and take. So I have a relationship with God where, you know, please keep me safe. Thank you for keeping me safe. You know, please, like, even in in my personal life, I'm interviewing for this new job, right? My wife's like, are you stressed about it? Absolutely not. And she's like, why? Because I'll know what the right decision is. And if it's meant to be, I know which path will be meant to be, because I pray about it. And I wholeheartedly believe God will guide me down the path I'm meant to go. And I ask God every night, you know, guide me to where's the best place for me and my family so I can provide and protect my family. That's where I want to go. Ask God that every night. And even when I'm not interviewing, like everyday life, that's part of my everyday prayer. You know, allow me to provide and protect for my family as far as a career is concerned.
Right.
Please help me to choose the path that's best for my family. So when an opportunity comes up for an interview, you're like, maybe this is an answer. So I'm not going to shut it out, because maybe that's God guiding me towards this. So I go through the interview, and if it works out, it was meant to be. And if it doesn't, it wasn't meant to be. The last time I interviewed with him, I was wholeheartedly like, I'm leaving this company. Mm-hmm. And it didn't work out, and I'm really happy I stayed. And I feel like I was guided to that. Again, I still had the free agency to make the choice, but I was guided, and I'm thankful for it. So I do think you have free agency. It's not like we got here on planet Earth this day, and I did this, and God made me do this, and I did this.
Right.
It's not like you have a list of things you're doing in life, and God's making you do them. No.
Right.
I feel like it's
But he is a guide.
a guide
right. Yeah.
if you want a guide.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, here's a question. Now, I also want to hear from you, too, because we haven't heard, like, much
Yeah.
at all
Yeah.
tonight.
I've been staring in your eyes most of the night.
Most guests do, actually.
Okay, good.
Apparently, I command attention. No. Give me attention.
You got it all.
Thank you. So, whatever choice, say, whichever path you decide to go, God guided or not, it wouldn't go. I wouldn't ask, do you think God would support you, because he would, but do you think that would be the path that God intended, either way you chose?
I think God knows your heart, and he knows which way you're going to choose. So I think God's all knowing.
Okay.
God gives you the option to choose, knowing what you're going to choose. God says, well, it's not like he's giving you the option. It's not like God's being like, you can choose A or B, you know? He knows what you're going to choose. He knows your heart well enough to know what you're going to choose in any circumstance in life. I believe that.
Could it be? I don't know. Because you think about it, we'll say the heavenly, whatever, the spiritual world, the earth is a direct reflection. I've heard that before as well. So say I've got my kid. I've got a path that I would like them to choose. I know their heart pretty damn well because I raised them, right?
Yeah.
I created them, as it were. And there's definitely a path I would rather them go down. But at the same time, one, going to love them no matter what, which it does. And two, like, whatever path you choose is going to end up being the right one for you. Because one way will be the easy way, and one way will be the way you learn.
Yeah. So, and that's what I'm not saying that between each choice, there's a right and a wrong. I'm
Right.
saying
You're
God
saying
knows.
he knows.
He knows which one you're going to choose, even if you choose the wrong. Like he knew you're going to choose the wrong.
Right.
But
And I don't know.
see, and I get where you're coming from with having a kid and everything.
Right.
I think God knows us better than we will ever know our kids or ourselves.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I think God knows, like he knows me more than I know myself. I think God is internal. I believe the still small voice is a direct reflection of God inside of you. And yeah, I just think he's there.
Have you heard of Alan Watts?
Hmm.
Okay. So he brought up a very interesting perspective. He said, all right, if you were God and you were all-knowing, all-seeing, everything, first of all, he says, wouldn't that be boring? Which, for the human mind, yeah, probably. Second, he says, all right, so you're all-knowing, you're all-learning. What's the last thing that you can learn from in this life? It'd be surprise, the fact of not knowing and being able to then know after not knowing. So his take, it was kind of more of a Buddhist point of view, where God chooses to put a part of himself into each human to get that element of surprise. And so he was talking to these students. He was actually lecturing at a college. And Alan Watts was a crazy guy, drunk, everything. But he had some very mind-bending thoughts.
Yeah.
He's saying, you're all-knowing, all-seeing. You're like, all right, I want some surprise in my life. I'm going to put a slice of myself in this person, slice myself in this person, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, where do you end up? Oh, you end up in a classroom with a guy who's lecturing on what the fuck God would want, you know?
Yeah.
That was a very intriguing thought to me. And so, yes, God, in the sense of the all-knowing being is all-knowing, and in that sense, he would definitely know what your next action would be.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I don't know that he wants to know.
Yeah.
I wonder if, I just wonder if, as an all-knowing God, would you want to attempt to learn more by giving yourself a surprise, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing I love about this life is I can say I don't know so many times.
Yes, you can.
There's so much that no matter how much you search, I guarantee every one of us will get to the end and every one of us will be surprised. Every one of us.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Every one of us will be like, oh, shit. It's
Yeah.
not how I expected. In some
Yeah.
form or another, we'll be surprised. All you can do is have faith in what you believe in and go from there. But alongside of whether he knows or doesn't know what choice we're going to make,
Right.
I think the basis of choice is Adam and Eve, man. You think he didn't know that she was going to eat the fruit, take the fruit?
Well, he says also, go forth and populate the earth beforehand,
Mhm.
so he knows.
Yeah. Had Eve not done that, like the life we're living today wouldn't be in existence. It wouldn't be this.
Mhm.
It would be a form of heaven on earth per se. But then what would be the point? Because there's nothing, no progression. And in that instance, God knew Eve would do what she did. And here we are.
Why?
That's
Why?
the point.
Why did they do that?
Why did
Why?
who do that?
We'll say why. First of all, why would God put Adam and Eve there, knowing that they would partake of the fruit of knowledge of good and evil? Right, it was
Yeah.
the basis of it. Why would he do that? Planning on giving us physical bodies and a life experience versus an all heavenly
Well,
experience.
And that can go into a lot of different things.
Yeah, that's learning.
As well. Learning, I think so I believe all of us were in heaven beforehand.
Okay.
All of us were spirits or something of some form in heaven beforehand. And I think what you learn here on earth, you don't learn in heaven. I think the human experience is something unique, which is why everyone comes down here. But also there's a lot of different perspectives. I mean, there's talk about the war in heaven, which is really interesting. And some people believe it and some people don't. But there's the talk about the war, and I'm not very well read on it at all.
Why was there war in heaven? You at least know the basis of why there was war, right? Lucifer had a opposing opinion to what God wanted and said,
Yeah.
all right, all you followers, come my way. Then they had Jesus and Satan, essentially, where Satan was his right-hand man beforehand, right?
Right.
Walked in and out of the gates of heaven. I think he still does.
Yeah, and
if he's a person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I think...
Because...
Again, I think you can always be forgiven. I don't think hell's a permanent thing.
Yeah.
I think if that's the case, he's an essential part of what this is we're living. And so, yeah, that makes total sense. But also, what if... There's so many what ifs, and you can go down rabbit holes all day. But what if, okay, Lucifer, God and Christ, they split up and their followers split up.
Right.
And what if our experience here on earth is, what if all those followers got muddled and he didn't know which was which, and he needed to figure it out by their free agency? What if he had to sort them back into heaven and hell?
It's possible.
There's so many I don't think that's the case, but there's so many possibilities. You'll just never know, and I'm looking forward to knowing. So
this is a fantastic basis for most every religion, a good and an evil, right? Mm-hmm. And they all have a very similar story, whether they use the names God, Jesus, and Satan or not. They've got different gods, whatever, but it's the same repeating story.
Yep.
And I think these texts, no matter what religion you're going for, were meant to be understood by the human mind. And that is why they're given a duality of good and evil. That's why there's always a good, always an evil. And so that we can better understand, okay, there is a morality, there is a basis for it, and there's things that we're not necessarily supposed to do. For the we'll say with the understanding that life is the basic principle, like why you'd be here, life and repopulation and they get muddled as they go down, right? Life and repopulation of only our religion kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's how they end up going. But I think the basis of it, the origin story of good and evil, is they got to play those roles so that the human mind would understand the difference in morality, because the human mind does not understand one thing without its opposite.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's all interesting. And that's the thing.
I don't mean to bore you.
No, I'm not bored at all. And I totally agree. I'm at a point where I believe what I believe. I can't, in most circumstances, I can't quantify it. I can't justify it. I just know that I believe it. And I know it'll change in 10 years, in 20 years. I know it'll always be transforming. And I could get to the end and it could be wrong. And that's why I'm not a prophet. Telling y'all to follow me, you know. I believe wholeheartedly. I have no doubt in my mind, but it's not my job to lead others there. And one question I have for you,
please,
because with having a kid, I believe this wholeheartedly.
Yes,
I believe my daughter's soul spirit chose me and my wife. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Yep. I think. There's a really interesting book on this. It's a children's book. Mm-hmm. It's called The Little Soul in the Sun. If you've never heard of it,
no, I'm gonna go buy it though.
It's fucking great. So the basis of this book is they make these contracts, agreements, however you want to put it, up in heaven as spirits, and they're like, all right, so in this life, then I'm gonna be the one who injures you, who murders you, or a family member. I'm gonna cause this thing to happen in your life so that you can learn forgiveness.
Right.
Or vice versa. All these different things where the human experience, you learn, it's give and take and everything. You won't remember this. Basically, you won't remember this while you're here on Earth, or while you're there on Earth. But once we get back here, we'll be buddies again. So I think that damn nigh every person in our life, we have an agreement, some sort of contract, like this is the role you will play in my life, and this is what I will be able to learn from that in order to further myself as a spirit being. Which is fucked, because then you go and look at our life here on Earth, and you're like, All right. There's good and evil as far as the physical human being is concerned. Like, afterwards, how the fuck does that math, right? Because this guy did this thing to me, and it taught me to forgive, and that furthered my spiritual progression. So we actually had this conversation for hours with another guest. If you're interested, you guys can listen to the podcast with Mo Kelch. And
It was
we were like
6 hours.
It wasn't 6 hours. Well,
between both days.
Yeah, he came 2 times. So we were asking, like, is there a good and is there an evil? Because, and ultimately, I think what I came down to, because I word vomit, but I also like learn things and try to refine my points, right? What it came down to was like, here on earth, with the basis of morality being life, there's definitely good and evil, right? Up in the spiritual realm, one, who the fuck knows, and there could be a difference up there, but it's not going to be the same ones as here on earth.
No, I can agree with that.
So that's a damn interesting book.
Yeah, no, that book does sound interesting, and I think all of it, for me, comes back to faith. We can debate everything, and I think that's what faith is there for. You have to have faith because you're not going to know the answers. Nobody's going to know the answers.
Right.
But then that book, I'm going to have to read it because now I'm like looking at each one of you guys like, what's our contract, boys? What are we doing? What are you teaching me? Yeah. Which it's an interesting point.
And it doesn't have to be a negative emotion necessarily, but
maybe our contract with each other is to push the boundaries and seek for further knowledge. Maybe you never know.
We try.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
I got another good book for you, and I can tell you these after as well, but it's called The Journey of Souls.
That's a good one.
That was a very mind bender that I think you would like, and it should go along with your perspectives fairly well.
Yeah, so that's something I need to be better at. I read a lot of business books.
Right.
I don't read a ton of.
Yeah, you feed your mind a lot, right?
Yeah, I don't read a ton of religious books, because I just my religion isn't based out of a book, but I need to.
Right.
So yeah, I'm always interested in reading anything. I'll look at any of it.
So if your wife and daughter were murdered,
that went dark.
I know, but what do you believe?
Have you ever seen The Patriot or Taken or
Gladiator?
Right. Right, but on the actual level that we're talking about.
No, on the actual
what do you believe?
level. Like, okay, so.
Like, what would happen? I know you'd go kill people, but.
Well, yeah.
Or die trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I would do. Is that the right answer? Probably not, I would say.
Yeah. Do you still believe in God after that?
Still believe in God, but I don't believe I'm doing God's work. Yeah, so, yes.
You really think you'd believe still?
Huh?
You really think you'd believe still, even though everything's taken away from you?
100%. This could be a real emotional thing for me.
We like emotions.
Yeah, that's great, Kai.
No, I think everything is God. To a point where, I mean, sure, you'd have emotions about it, feelings about it, but if something bad happened in any respect to anybody I love, I know it's God's plan. And I find comfort in that, knowing it. That's not to say it wouldn't be tough. But I wholeheartedly believe that it's God's plan. And that's it. That's all. I feel like that's all I can say on it. If someone comes in and murders my family, you're going to have bad feelings. I'm probably going to be a bad person, and it's going to be an eye for an eye because now they get to die. And it's just a bad deal. It's a dark hole. But sure. I believe that it was God's will that it happened. And I don't believe like, oh, my family died, something bad happened to me. Now I don't believe in God. No, I believe I'm with God through good and bad, and God's with me through good and bad. I think Go ahead.
So then if it's God's plan, why the fuck would that happen?
Because maybe he wanted them home. Maybe it was time for them. He wanted his angels back. And that's the way I look at it. I think if children, especially from the children perspective, if a child dies, someone dies young, I believe that they have already, whatever we're proving down here, they have already proved themselves in God's eye. And God wanted them back. Their time on earth is done. And they die innocent. A child dies, a baby dies. They've died innocent. They can have done no wrong. And so God put them down here, yes, but he pulled them back saying, you're innocent and you have nothing to prove. That's what I believe. So hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it's his will, it's going to, and I'll have to justify it. But if my daughter passed away, it'd be the worst thing on planet Earth. Like, I would spiral. I'd be in a bad place.
Yeah.
But I know it's God's will, and I would like to think I wouldn't have any ill will towards God. Well, I'd like to think. It probably takes some time to muddle through, but I know in my heart that it happened for a reason. It's what was meant to happen, and it was meant to teach me something. It's all a progression of life, and there's people, families that have lost children, which in my mind, that is the worst thing that can happen on planet Earth, is to lose a child. I think losing everything would be better than losing a child. But a lot of people lose children, and they got to muddle their way through life trying to figure it out. Some of them do it, and some of them do it great, and some of them don't. And I think it's just part of your journey. Have you seen, in regards to that, have you seen the movie The Shack?
No.
Yes.
I'll read the book.
Tell me how you feel about that. So let me explain The Shack. I think everybody should watch it.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah, I think everybody should watch it, not for the sake of religion, for the sake of it really opens your mind to a bunch of different perspectives, because essentially it is a man's daughter. His family, his wife is really religious. He's not. So they go to church and stuff. He doesn't really have a relationship with God, but he kind of fakes it till he makes it with his family. And so they go camping. His wife gets kidnapped. Or not his wife, his daughter gets kidnapped. They're searching for her. All they find is a shack in the woods with a piece of her clothes with blood. Little girl, and you can assume the worst. Bad shit happened. They didn't find her. And so he, spiraling, gets into a bad place, and he finds a letter in his mailbox telling him to come to the shack. And it had just snowed. There's no footprints in the snow or whatever. And he gets to the shack with a gun, thinking like, oh, he's going to kill this guy. And then he gets there and the guy's not there, and he's like, oh, I'm going to kill myself. And then it kind of opens up, and it opens up to basically God, Christ, and the Holy Ghost. But it's not those characters. Like, God is in the form of a woman, and he's like, how can you be God? Like, God's a man. And in his history of life, his dad was way abusive, and didn't he kill his dad? He poisoned his dad's alcohol.
So, yeah.
Had a bad experience with men, so this woman who was portraying God said, how could I come to you in the form of a man? I come to you in whatever form you need me to be in. And for you, man is not a form you take to. So I'm here in the form of a woman. And it just kind of, I don't feel like it paints Christianity, but it doesn't, like, I don't know. I feel like it's so broad, and I think it's just a really good show for everybody to watch and take what you will of it.
In the end, he learns forgiveness and is actually able to forgive the man who kidnapped his daughter, basically.
Yeah, and he went in there with hate, like, I'm going to kill this guy, I'm going to kill myself, and came out of it just all around better. And I think it's a good answer to what you're saying. Like, yeah, I'd be killing him or killing myself. We'd do some weird shit. But in the end, you're meant to deal with it, I think, and become better for it, which I don't know if it'd be possible for me, but I'd sure lean on God trying to do it.
Yeah.
And it might be like John Wick 4 and that shit till I figured it out.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Why didn't you like it?
For the very fact that they assume that a man can forgive another man for abducting his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck no.
I
Now,
think you can.
Maybe our spirits will figure it out later.
Yeah.
But at that point, my sole purpose in life is to send him to God and let him figure it out.
Well, yeah, not to say
So-
you wouldn't do that. I think.
I don't know that I could forgive that here on
Yeah.
this earth.
Yeah.
I couldn't even forgive the movie, so I don't think I could forgive the guy. You know.
Yeah.
I get where they're coming from, and it's all peace and love and light at the end, but nah, we'll figure that
Yeah.
one out later.
I think on my own, I
Yeah.
couldn't. With the help of God, I could. That's what I think.
It would take a God.
That's my point. So on my own, I know there's zero chance. With the power of God, I think there is a chance. If things would have to be opened up and revealed, like he's opened up and revealed, and in the movie he sees the spirit of his father and sees the spirit and everything. Like if it's opened up and revealed to me, like you have my daughter in heaven, she's living well, you're taking care of her. That's different than not knowing or not having an answer. If it was just someone abducted, take God out of it. Someone took my daughter, dude, we're full blown just fucking all the shit up. And there would be no rhyme or reason. You know how many innocent people I'd probably kill to get to the one that killed her? It'd be a bad date.
Yes.
And I would enlist every one of you bastards in there with me, and it would just be bad. I think without God, impossible. I think the power of God trumps all, and I've heard people talk and I believe this to be true, though I haven't felt it. The love of God, once you feel the love of God, or God's love, or God, any of that it'll trump your love for children, wife, anything, which seems impossible. Like I think about it now, and I'm like, I'll never love anything more than my child. But I do believe that if you were shown properly, the love of God would come before your family. I believe that. And a lot of people don't, and I understand that. Looking at it, like it seems impossible, but I think it's possible.
I'll have to wait till that happens, because for now those two loves are at the very most one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Do you guys believe in God?
I don't.
I do.
I believe in something.
Okay.
I don't.
You said you do?
I do.
You do, and you don't.
I don't believe in just not the way everybody sees him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Do you believe in a higher power?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
To me, that's the same thing. Like, everyone gives it the name God, but I think you believe in some sort of something greater than yourself.
I just don't like that word.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I get it. There's a negative connotation
get
to
it.
it in our family, for sure. When did you start believing in God?
Wait, what form of God? First of all, because this is a fucking turnaround.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that either.
Not a man. It's more a higher power, higher being, something of that nature. Not necessarily going to be a man, although could be, right?
Okay, so spiritual, not religious God.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think God has to
Okay.
take a physical form. Again,
No.
I agree with that, but continue, please.
Yeah. So
Okay.
for a while there, I just put everything. Yeah, we're going a little late.
No, I just got a text. I'm just making
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, I need to be done at like 9:30.
Okay. Yeah, we'll finish up quick here, because I've got to be up at 3:30 tomorrow.
Yeah, I got to study a bunch, too.
Anyway, so for a while there, I just put everything on pause. I was like, okay, I don't know if I believe shit. Nothing. Let's see. So I did a lot of studying. I did a lot of thinking. Did a lot of feeling. Just like, okay, first of all, why? So many whys. If you can't tell, I'm a fan of why and what. And then I come to realize, first of all, doesn't matter what the fuck I believe. Just matters that I have a spiritual connection with the Creator, as it were. Because I knew that made sense at the very least. We as humans cannot, we do create other humans, but we do not create their spirits,
Mhm.
right? we can create up to, but not necessarily the equal of ourselves. And so it would make sense that a higher power would create a human spirit. Okay, that was number one, and then number two, why I believe in a higher power was just like you see all the beauty, the magic, the spirituality, everything of each and every person around you. You see God in everybody's eyes, or you can get to that point, right? And you end up walking through life in awe of every second. Like, I have not created that. You have not created that.
Mm-hmm.
Something has created that. That was my biggest basis. Was just like, okay, now we can start here.
How did tell me how your daughter played a role in that? The birth. Did you have any sort of experience with your daughter?
Well, I had a lot of great experience with my daughter and my wife. I wouldn't say anything that was like godlike. It was very, very spiritual.
That's what I mean.
Yes. Yeah, it was a very spiritual and sacred experience.
Mm-hmm.
When you are in the room of a birth in process, and then when that birth becomes a reality, you are standing on hallowed ground. I did not want to have my shoes on, right?
Yeah.
Just like, geez, this is...
Do you feel like it reaffirmed some sort of your spiritual beliefs? Did it reassure any of that?
By this point, I was pretty solid with a lot of that. So I would say yes. It reinforced it, but I didn't know what I was getting into.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew, I wouldn't say I knew what to expect, but something similar. Like I knew that bringing another soul into this world is a very spiritual experience. Yeah. Actually experiencing that is a little different and quite unspeakable.
Yeah. Yeah, I
'cause you just like,
I would agree. I would challenge, and it happens, but to me, in my mind, I would challenge anybody to bring another human into this world and not feel some sort of spirituality about it. In my mind, I don't know how it would be possible.
Yeah.
Because you bring this child into the world and there's nothing like it. There's no feeling like it. When I heard my daughter cry for the first time, like all of a sudden everything changes like that. It's spiritual. Like you said, it's hallowed ground. Like I don't think there will ever be any experience like it other than aside from having more children.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's because, first of all, it's amazing. Second of all, babies are the closest you can be to your creator, or they came, whatever you want to call it, they came directly from there. They just came. They're the closest. They're the freshest from your higher power. I just think it's amazing. And the body and what it goes through, I think it's not possible without God. The body, the beauty of it. My wife, she had been kind of dabbling in religion. As soon as she had that baby, she's like, and there is a God. And I feel like for a lot of people, it is a turning point. They have a child and I believe in some sort of higher power. I think for a lot of people, it's a tipping point. For me, like you said, I already kind of was there, but it was just, I felt like I knew what to expect, but it happened and I didn't know what to expect. And it was just so spiritual and so moving and so emotional and emotional in a great way. But
I actually didn't cry at the point she was born. I was crying a lot up to that point, though.
Yeah. Yeah, you had a different experience than me.
Yes.
But I was totally fine, dude. Didn't think I was going to cry. They pulled her out. She cried, the baby, first scream, and it was just like 100% real right there. And it was, dude, there was no way I wasn't crying. It was just the realest thing I've ever been a part of. It was insane.
Yeah, you guys want to experience reality?
Dude.
Have a kid.
Yeah,
be there for it.
Well, there really isn't anything like it, and you'll never feel as happy or as big of a piece of shit, because there's times when you have your kid and you get frustrated or something, and
yeah.
you're not projecting it outwards, but in your body you're frustrated, and then you're like, fuck, why would I think that, or why? She's so innocent, and she's only crying because she just loves me and depends on me for all of life. And like my wife, we've been struggling getting the kid down, and my wife is like, I let her cry for a few minutes to go to sleep. You think I'm letting her cry, dude? No, dude. My wife has her there crying, and I go and I hold her, and she's crying like hysterical cry, right? She's pissed. I pick her up. She's asleep before she ever hits my body, dude. It's the best and the worst thing. You feel like crap, but then you pick them up, and they know, and they're just like, oh. Dude, I could talk about it all day. There's nothing like having a kid. If you don't have a kid, have a kid. Do it the right way, but have a kid. It's the best thing in life. If all of this ends and there was no point to it, I'm content just knowing that I had a kid and had that experience. That's my point of life.
Yeah, I tell new parents, I said, be careful those first 3 months, because your contentment with that child will make you very complacent in the world. Because I had that kid, and I was like, I don't even want to be a pilot. I'm going to go work a 9 to 5, and I want to just come home to this every day.
Yeah. And then your wife's sending you pictures, and you're like,
yeah.
I'm at work, and I'm
I
getting
hate being at
pictures.
work right
and I'm
now.
like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I'm pissed. Yeah.
So I definitely warned against those first few months. And then after that, you kind of like can balance, all right, life is still here, and now we're striving for a purpose for this kid.
Yeah, I feel like it drove me in some ways, but also in other ways, like, people are like, oh, let's go and do this. I'm like we got home, when we got home from St. George, everyone's like, want to come up to Grandma's? Dude, I spent 48 hours just cuddling my baby watching TV, and I was so happy with it. Like, this is the best weekend I've ever had. It's great. Nothing like it.
Amen.
Heck yeah.
And with that, do you have any parting words for the listeners?
Keep asking questions. That's my biggest thing. Seek to understand. Ask questions. Nobody knows everything, so when you guys figure it out, let me know, because I'm always looking for more.
Awesome.
Chances are, even if someone figures it out,
I won't believe
everyone
them.
else, nobody's going to give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. People probably have figured it out already.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Awesome, listeners. Well, thank you guys for joining us again for another podcast. Thanks, Dalton, for coming on.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And we'll see you guys next week.
All
Peace
right,
out.
See you later.